Let's play a little bit with an idea. Attorneys typically bill in 6-minute increments. So if they think of something while they're showering and they think, oh, you know what, we ought to add this to the contract, then they will add a 6-minute increment to the bill that they provide to the client. And so I thought, just for fun, let's think about it from that perspective, that your life is filled with 6-minute increments. You get 10 of them every hour. And assuming that you shower and you eat and you sleep for 8 hours, you have about 15 hours a day to go out and be productive and get accomplished what you want to produce based on your subjective values, which will, of course, be different from mine. Every decision that you make, every action that you take, is not only choosing to use that 6-minute increment for that thing, it is also making the choice not to use that 6-minute increment for a lot of other things. So, for example, if I really value learning Spanish and I spend 6 minutes, I spend one increment of my 150 increments in the day, I spend 6 minutes studying Spanish. I have shown by doing that, if I'm a thoughtful person, that I value that more highly than spending that 6 minutes working at my job at the factory, or learning the piano, or playing video games, or going target shooting, whatever else it is that I could have spent that time doing. I evidently, subconsciously or maybe consciously, valued more highly the ability or the skill of learning Spanish. That was my highest value. And so I spent those 6 minutes doing that. My point in bringing this up is that I have heard quite a bit from some people who I would say are a bit entitled in their mindset, and they want this good work life balance. And I'm going to suggest to you that a work life balance shouldn't be considered something we strive for. Should be considered as a value, a thing. And I would say that it is a luxury good. So I would like to have a Ferrari. And I would also like to have a good work-life balance. I would also like to have a nice NetJets account that was filled with money so that when I wanted to fly somewhere, I didn't have to fly commercially. You know how poor people are. They kind of smell of perspiration and used motor oil and cigarettes. And yeah, I would prefer to be among a classier group of folks, and actually no folks at all. I just have my pilots and maybe somebody to help bring me a drink. Yeah, that would be neat to have that NetJets thing in the Ferrari and a good work-life balance. But those are all things that are in the luxury goods category. And when I first started in life, when I was in my 20s and 30s, even 40s, most people, you don't produce enough value out of your 150 increments each day, your 6-minute increments. You haven't spent enough of those to really get the flywheel going, to get things compounding, to make the connections that will matter so much later in life, to learn the skills, to learn the knowledge. You haven't done all of that yet. So until you've spent 20 years of focused time and energy on accomplishing what it is that you really want, my suggestion is that you don't have time or a right or an entitlement, or that you shouldn't put a lot of effort into luxury goods. So what I think you ought to spend your time on, my personal subjective values, I think you should kind of do the Dave Ramsey thing, the millionaire next door thing. And you should try to build your net worth. You should try to get as many assets as you can. See how many houses you can get. See how many smart other assets you can get. Your retirement account, your precious metals, if you're into the crypto thing. You should try to build up a bunch of those. You should build some businesses. You should build relationships with people. And your first years, that's what you should be spending most of your 150 daily increments on. And the idea of losing 300 increments a week by taking a weekend off, oh my gosh, like that would be, in my way of thinking, so silly to do. Now, you can get burned out. And, after 3, 4, 5, 10 years of working 52 hours a week, yeah, you do get burned out. So, yeah, if you want to give yourself a day off every month, great. You always look forward to the first Saturday or the first Sunday or whatever it is. That's great. But why would you waste all these increments? Think of all you can accomplish with one increment. 6 minutes. Like, really, if you stretched for one increment each day, would you be way more flexible than you currently are? Would you be way more able to do physical things, like not feel the pain, um, and just be able to move your body around? Yeah, absolutely. What if you spent one increment a day learning a language? What if you spent one increment a day uh, self defense, learning some martial arts skills, or just practicing something? And this doesn't have to be fancy. You could use a portion of an increment. And how about instead of 6 minutes, you spend 1 minute, and even if you don't do it properly, according to every single martial artist, what if you were just blocking and you did it completely wrong, but you did this and you weren't getting the right twist and snap and all that? Yeah, you're not doing it perfectly, but you do that for a minute a day for the next 700 days. Do you think maybe you'd be better at blocking a punch? Yeah, and that's only in a sixth of an increment, and you have 150 increments a day. Now, think about if you're really narrowing it down and using those increments so wisely, is it really a good idea to watch football or play video games or watch Netflix or watch videos that aren't instructional on YouTube? Is that really how you want to spend those increments? And let's say that you say, you know what, I like winding down in the evening and I want to have a good work-life balance. I want to spend some of my increments on luxury goods. And every evening I want to have 2 hours of not working. Before I go to bed, I want to chill out and I want to spend 12 increments on I'm sorry, 20 increments on just relaxation, playing video games, watching movies, whatever. Okay. Um, if you make that choice, if that's what you want to do and you want to waste that every single day and you think about how much that would add up, just don't expect to have as big of a net worth 20 years from now, 30 years from now. Don't expect to be as healthy. Don't expect to be fit. Don't expect to be to have as many quality connections with human beings who are also wisely investing their income. You're going to have a very different life. And it's not right or wrong. There are hundreds of millions of people in the developed world and many more in the less developed that spend their increments very poorly. And many of them just don't have quite the opportunities that I have. I could go out right now. It's snowed within the last week. I could go find a job at 20 or 30 bucks an hour shoveling snow. I could spend my increments doing that. I choose not to, but I'm also a little bit further along that stretch, and now I am choosing to thoughtfully spend increments, uh, kind of buying this luxury good of increments of not doing much, of just relaxing or making a video or something like that. So be thoughtful about how you invest your increments, is my suggestion. Please don't think that you are entitled to anything, any of these luxury goods like work life balance or living close to where it is that you work. No, if you have an oil field job and you're making 130 grand a year and you have to drive an hour, don't whine about it. It's what you've got to do. Now, if you are still doing that 30 years later and you haven't really figured out how to leverage things, maybe you should have spent some of those driving hours listening to books about how to leverage and how to be smart and how to invest and that kind of thing. But if it's your first 10 or 20 years, no, it's not all going to be perfect. You don't get to live 2 minutes from where you work, and you don't get to make huge money if you haven't invested the time to build the skill. If you wasted your time watching Netflix or playing video games or going getting a college degree in some digital marketing, blah, 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 rather than just learning to do it, if you've wasted those increments, you're going to be way behind and you can't expect to get paid well. So don't complain and don't say, "Oh, I can't believe I'm only making so much money." Well, of course, that's all you're making. If you haven't invested bunch of your increments, and I'm talking about being disciplined about it. You haven't invested a bunch of increments every day, every week, every month for some years. No, you haven't leveraged yourself to be worth much in the free market yet. And it's not anything against you. That can be your choice. You could choose to live in a very inexpensive mobile home park. You could value cigarettes highly. You could value lottery tickets highly. You could value having a lot of children highly. And you could value all of those things more highly than not being on welfare and not working. Yeah, it's up to you how you value things. That's your choice. I value them differently. And for those who care, I offer my suggestions about how you can build a more financially and intellectually wealthy life. And those are some things that are important to me. Other people have other values. I am not very physically fit. And there are some people who that's their number one thing is health. So they're eating organic foods and they're either on an all meat or an all vegetarian diet or whatever. And they're spending time meditating and they're doing all of these things. Great. That's what they value more highly. But don't come back later and say, I can't believe I don't own a home. Everyone else here in Beverly Hills owns homes. No, you don't. You don't have a right to own a home in Beverly Hills. You don't have a right to have a bunch of money to spend on net jets. You don't have a right to have a good work-life balance. Like these aren't just natural things that happen to humans. You have to work for them. You have to make this stuff happen. So my challenge to you is do it. Figure out what your highest values are and pursue them and be happy and don't complain that you're not getting the other things in the areas where your highest values are different. If you really do enjoy relaxing for an hour a day, you're willing to, I'm not going to call it wasting, I'm going to try to respect. If you are willing to waste the average of an hour a day on Netflix or video games or something like that, if you are willing to do that, then get it into your head. I am never going to be as wealthy as I could. I'm never going to be as fit as I could be. I am going to probably end up having a little bit lousier life during my last 40 years because I'm choosing to do this now. Just know that. And if you're willing to pay that price, okay. But my challenge is think about this in a very structured way. Think about having a little less fun with fewer luxury goods right now. A mentor of ours once said, you can have everything. You just can't have everything right now. That sounds really smart to me.